We are driving the renaissance of science. We lead the progress of bioengineering. We are the vision of technology.
We are genetics. We are your evolution. I am your future.
All right, so I got to see Killing Floor 2. First time they've shown gameplay. For our audience, unfortunately, you guys aren't seeing anything I'm going to talk about. They've got a couple of like creature trailers that will roll under this, but we don't have any of the cool footage, basically. But you were a big fan of the first Killing Floor, so give me a little bit of a rundown on your thoughts and experience with that.
Well, it's kind of in the vein of Left 4 Dead, but more horde-y. So, like, instead of progression, you know, it's more about just surviving waves of enemies. I want to see what they're going to do with the dismemberment, because the only thing I've really heard about Killing Floor 2 was PC Gamer did an article about 6 months ago, and they said that was their main focus. They wanted every kill to look and feel different. So I think the last Killing Floor had 4 or 5 areas where a body could come apart, and this time they have like 19 or something.
19 different chunks that can be spawned from a creature. Yeah, they basically said that rather than like trying to like let's make everything better, it's like let's make these 3 specific areas better, and like they had their little tagline of like it was like bullets, blades, and blood, right? So the blood, I guess, is the gore factor, and and I'm not really into like gross dismemberment of things, but I do like that. Yeah, you have this just like real solid hit detection. It's like, okay, if you hit a guy when he's running towards you, he's gonna stumble and kind of bend over, and if you hit him hard enough, you're actually gonna just knock his leg off.
How many kills did you see, and how many looked different from each other?
I probably saw 100, 200 kills.
Did they all look different?
Because a lot of it, I mean, this was not like a normal gameplay demo, because they were showing off the technology. So they were just like running around and like dropping enemies into the scene and then just shooting them without any AI turned on or anything like that, because they were demoing the technology of it.
And was it only in one level, one zone?
They showed a couple of different levels. But so one of the things that like with a headshot, depending on the strength of your gun, headshot's not always going to be an instant kill. Like you might actually like blow a chunk off of their face and like see their skull, and then the second time will be when you actually pop the skull, and that kind of thing. And then when you go into slow motion, you can actually like see the bullets like fly through the air and where they hit their targets and that kind of thing. And then another thing that goes along with the kind of the gore and dismemberment. One thing they talked about Left 4 Dead and how basically when you dismember something in Left 4 Dead, once it was dead, it stopped reacting. Whereas in Killing Floor 2, like you can keep like shooting it, and more parts would fly off.
Soldier of Fortune style.
Yeah.
I remember in Soldier of Fortune 2, you could kneel down over a dead body and continually cut their face off. Is it that extreme?
Probably not that crazy, but yeah, you can do basically the same kind of thing with as many parts as they have. And then the other thing that's kind of cool is that you can like actually juggle a guy in the air. So like if you manage to like shoot him with a shotgun and he flies in the air, then you can hit him again and he'll flip over and all of that. So
can you go Dante style and use a sword to launch someone in the air and then pull out your gun and shoot him?
I don't know if you could pull a gun out quick enough, but maybe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then with that, the focus on the animations there is that they've got something like 90 or whatever different death animations, but then the death animations blend into the ragdoll. And that's what you're saying. Like they want to make sure that you're not looking at the same thing every time.
Yeah.
And then the other.
From what you saw, is that safe to say that it?
I mean, it still felt like there's a little bit of repetition to like how heads popped off and that kind of thing. But it wasn't like cookie cutter. There was definitely variance in that. The other thing that they kind of hyped up was that the blood, like as long as you're in a session, like all the blood that splatters around will stay there.
Love that.
The blood will never like disappear. It's still an alpha, so from what I saw, the blood so far doesn't look like that impressive, like as its actual thing. It's just kind of like it looked like kind of like they had stamps, like a blood stamp that was like, like it wouldn't just like drip. It would be like, here's a splatter of blood, here's a splatter of blood, that type of thing. So, but they're still working on that. So hopefully it will get better and more convincing. But they say that the way that they've implemented it won't affect performance. And then kind of moving on to like the bullets. One of the things they did was not only did they motion capture people for all of the creatures and their animations, they actually motion captured like a gun expert from like a first-person view to get like all of the gun animations. And so there's like a lot of subtle movement, like left and right, back and forth type of thing. They have all these reload animations, and then one of the things that you can unlock with your perks is the tactical reload, which speeds up your reloads. But they didn't want it to just be, let's fast forward this animation. They actually had this guy do more expert, quick reload things to where like he would spin the gun and it would just shoot the magazine out and he'd pop in the other magazine. So when you get that, you actually get a whole new set of animations. And they're like, they have the animations going at like 200 frames per second, so that when you go into slow-mo, you see all this detail of like little bits swinging back and forth and rattling and that kind of thing.
To a little more on animations, I remember in that same article they were talking about different areas for the enemies to come into the zone.
Yeah.
So and they were hyping up the monsters coming out of the sewer and they would crawl out. How many different areas and styles of entry did you see from the monsters?
The main things that I saw, I mean, there were a couple of times where I saw them popping in the same level, and then enemies, they didn't start at the same place. They were coming from different points. There was a point where, I did see them like crawling out of a sewer hole, which I think is probably one of the more, that's the thing. Is like you get surrounded and like you try to get your distance, but then, they're coming out at you from some other angle that you're not watching. There are like these spidery looking guys that come out of like ventilation ducts and are crawling across the ceiling towards you. And then one of the enemies actually, what is it called? I don't remember exactly what it's called.
The Book of Blood.
One of the enemies is basically can cloak itself. So you can barely see them. So
Until
you have
it's
to.
too late.
Yeah. So you have to watch out for them.
Did you get the sense that you're going to have that constant feeling of being surrounded and nowhere is safe, and they're going to just come in from all sides?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that was really another point that I thought was cool is that they have, with the different difficulty settings, they aren't just making more enemies or tougher enemies or you having less health. They are actually reserving enemy attack patterns. So that when you step it up to the next difficulty, enemies are doing things that you're not used to.
So it's like an MMO, like heroic mode or something.
And
That's
so
awesome.
there are these one guys that what happens is if you panic, they will actually roll. They'll do like a rolling animation. They'll come at you quicker. But if you stand your ground, they'll come at you at a slower pace. So you actually have to kind of like steel yourself and like put yourself in the right spot to deal with them, because if you start running, you're actually going to put yourself in more danger.
That's awesome.
Another thing they talked about with the difficulty is, they talked about how amazed they are at like how the audience deals with them. So they're talking about with the Hell on Earth difficulty, they know they've tuned it right where nobody in the office will be able to beat it.
Oh my gosh.
So definitely listening to what their community is doing, and in terms of that, like they're looking a lot in terms of accessible mod tools and all of that to expand the game. And then the last point they talked about was blades, and that's they're emphasizing a lot more melee combat. And so they're going to have a lot of different melee weapons. They mentioned maybe knives and sledgehammers as well, but the one that they showed off was a katana. And
Lo Wang.
And the one thing they said you could do is like you can actually, I don't know what you would do differently, but you can actually use it and attack as you switch weapons and pull it out. So it's like as soon as it comes out, you're slashing with it. Nice. And then as you're moving, your movement keys determine the direction that you're slashing. And then I think left click is like a light attack, and right click is strong attack. And then it doesn't have any gameplay effect, but they say that you can hit the reload button to like swipe the blood off the sword.
That's cool. Spray it on the environment.
Yeah.
And when can we expect to see some footage?
I don't know. I mean, I know they're going to be at Gamescom next week, or it's next week. I'm trying to remember when this actually goes live. But I don't know, when they're actually going to reveal footage. Some more little fun bits. They talked about there's more destruction in the environment. You can actually destroy lights, so that like if you toss a grenade or if an enemy, gets near a light source, then you could blow that light source, and then that's going to be, play into the difficulty there. Perk levels, I guess in the first one they had 6 perk levels. Now they have 25, so there's a lot more variation, a lot more skill to grow up into. And then I just want to see if there's anything else left off before we wrap it up. But I think we're good. So not typically my kind of game, but like I said, there's stuff that they're doing that I like, that I wish more games would do. Seeing those hit reactions and seeing the just more variation and difficulty and that kind of thing. What do you think? Did I tell you anything new, or is this all from that article?
No, you have a lot of new stuff. I'm really excited. I like that they're opening up the perk options, so hopefully there's more of a dynamic between your team helping each other out.
Yeah.
And I like wiping the blood off the sword. That sounds awesome.
Cool. Well, hopefully we'll be able to actually show you next week.